Welcome back to Viewpoint. As I said before, the timing couldn't be more apt, really. On Mother's Day, paid parental leave is being debated very hotly in the political environment and will be a major issue in Budget Week this week. I wanted to talk about it in more detail, the broader issues around it and also other challenges facing women in their careers. So I'm joined from Melbourne tonight by Kate Ashmor, who heads up Australian Women's Lawyers. Thanks for joining us, Kate.
Thanks, Chris.
And in the studio with me is the Australian columnist Cassandra Wilkinson, regular panellist here on Sky News. Thanks for joining us, Cassandra.
Good to be here.
Now, both of you have different perspectives on this issue. I want to start at the government scheme. It's a historic scheme, the first paid parental leave scheme that we have in place now, brought in by the Gillard government. I'm presuming, Kate, that you at least support that as a starting point in this debate.
Absolutely. Wonderful place to start and a wonderful place to build upon.
And what about you, Cassandra? I mean, this would probably stand out as one of the Gillard government's most enduring reforms.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was chair of the Labor Women's Forum, we advocated for a scheme almost exactly like this. We were really excited to see it happen. The question is, how do you extend on it while respecting the principles of progressive taxation and equity and not turn it into another tranche of middle-class welfare?
Well, it is a big step, and Kate, the issue I'd put to you with, and you never hear this argued, and I'm probably not going to argue it now because I don't want to be condemned by everybody around the country, but it is a big extension of government welfare, if you want to call it that, the first paid parental leave scheme, and there wasn't really a debate about that. It was a baby bonus scheme that morphed into paid parental leave, but that'll never go, I imagine. No government will ever get rid of that.
Well, I certainly hope they don't, and we do need to expand it for the very simple reason that, according to the intergenerational report, the number of taxpayers per senior Australians is going to pretty much halve by 2050, and at the same time our health budget, our aged care budgets will double. So we need to make more taxpayers, we need to encourage Australian families to have more children. And this is one of those wonderful ways that government can incentivise economic growth and greater productivity, which we desperately need to future-proof our economy.
Now, you've come out publicly, Kate, and supported Tony Abbott's more generous scheme, which requires more taxation paid by big business and for women who go on to maternity or parental leave to be actually paid at their wage rather than at the minimum wage. Now, isn't this just a way of using taxpayers' dollars to provide more middle-class welfare to wealthier Australians?
Not at all. It's a wonderful way to achieve a lot of positive goals at the same time. We're able to achieve superannuation payments for women while they're on paid parental leave, and so we can actually start to cut into that $36,000 gap between male and female super at the moment. That's what the ABS tells us. We can also encourage women to breastfeed longer. We know that about 90% of women will breastfeed at birth of their child, and that drops down to about 40%, according to the Australian Breastfeeding Association, at about 4 months. And guess what happens at about 4 months of age? A lot of women have to return to work for financial reasons. Well, so a 6-month scheme would actually enable greater breastfeeding. It has wonderful public health benefits. Healthier kids means less strain on our hospitals, which means a saving to taxpayers. Well, just like women having more super in retirement is a saving to taxpayers.
There is no doubt we could all do with more money, but the problem here is this is money generated through a new tax, and there have been plenty of critics around. I'll come to Cassandra Wilkinson again in a moment, but just a reminder of what the Families Minister Jenny Macklin has had to say this week.
Tony Abbott wants to introduce a rolled gold scheme that will see very wealthy women get $75,000 to have a baby.
Cassandra, you agree with that argument?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things to say. First of all, you know, reproductive labour is a form of economic labour, and sure, the country needs to have more kids, but I didn't have my kids for the taxpayer, and I didn't have my kids for Peter Costello when he urged us to have one more for the country. Had them for myself, and there's a limit to how much other taxpayers should be supporting of each of us to make those decisions. And the second thing is that a lot of people look at the intergenerational report as if we have to start breeding immediately, but what it shows is that our productive years compared to our years as a burden on the health system are actually getting longer and longer. And we can't just keep on pretending that every handout is actually good for taxpayers in the long run.
There is an argument, though, that we don't take our annual leave or our sick leave at some minimum wage or some other standard. We take it at the wage we earn. And why should women have to lose a lot of their income if they're on maternity leave?
Because this is not an industrial benefit. I mean, the fact is, plenty of my women friends, and statistically plenty of women in this country, are not having children. They have chosen not to. Sick leave is something we all chip into because anyone can need it, and our long service leave and our annual leave are our industrial benefits. Childbearing is not economic labour. It is a personal choice that we make, and the fact is, most parties generally in this country have always agreed with progressive taxation. If you are wealthier, you chip in a little more for the community, and if you're really needy and you need help, you get some help. We can't tax Woolies without taxing everyone who buys groceries, and that means taxing the whole of the community for the benefit of the few.
Well, especially in these difficult fiscal times, affordability is a very important part of this debate, and Tony Abbott's had critics of this policy from within his own party. Here's his backbencher, Alex Hawke.
This is ill-suited, I think, to an economically liberal agenda. The question is this good economic policy at this time? And my answer is no. There is a very good opportunity here, given the ongoing budget crisis, to revisit this policy and remove this albatross around the neck of the party.
Kate Ashmor, even if we decided that the aim of this policy is right, surely this is a very difficult time to see it introduced politically and economically, because we're about to see another budget deficit. Governments don't have a lot of money, and everybody in business is talking about the being overtaxed, a tax burden being too heavy.
This is precisely the perfect time to introduce a measure that increases productivity. We know from the Grattan Institute that if we increased the participation of women in the workforce to Canada's level, and Canada's a very similar country to us, so that's about 6% more than the current level of 67%, we'd actually inject another $25 billion into our national economy. Think of all that tax that working women will be paying. Well, just the money they'll be spending, the payroll tax will be generated.
Just let me finish up, though, with you, Kate, by asking, is parental leave really the answer, though? Isn't one of the biggest problems for women and careers is getting their careers kick-started again after having children, workplaces not being flexible enough, not allowing people to job share, and in fact seeing women move sideways or even effectively being demoted because they've come back from having children?
You're spot on, Chris, and I'd love to be able to talk to you for the entire hour about those issues, because I can tell you some stories from the coalface.
Well, perhaps it's something we need to look at in more detail. Cassandra, is this something where the government should be looking at studying those sorts of issues more than just the money issue?
The so-called quality agenda has been ramming up the price of childcare for about 5 to 8 years now. What we need to do is reduce the cost of childcare so that every woman with a baby benefits, every man and woman who have children benefit. The problem with this scheme is not that working women aren't productive. The problem with this scheme is that it is collecting from everyone and handing the benefits to the women on high incomes.
All right, I'm going to have to leave it there.
I respectfully disagree.
Indeed, that's what we're into, respectful disagreement. Thanks very much for sharing your views with us tonight from Melbourne. Kate Ashmor, appreciate your time. And also Cassandra Wilkinson.
Pleasure.
And happy Mother's Day to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.